Howdy folks, this is Nelward coming at you with a brand spanking new tutorial. This time it's about my approach to remixes. We will be speaking about this song. If you like what you hear and you are interested in composition and production lessons, I offer lessons through Google Hangouts. Feel free to reach out to me for rates. So here is what the original sounds like.
Hello, fellow dreamer, I'm floating here with you.
And here's my version.
Hello, fellow dreamer, I'm floating here with you.
Once again, here's the original.
To make the perfect paradise.
And here's my version. So my approach to remixes is to treat them as if they are original songs. I advocate an interpretive approach where the chords are reharmonized and the arrangement is changed significantly. So when Braz reached out to me about doing this remix, I began to brainstorm before going into Ableton. I came to the conclusion that what I wanted for this piece was a sky jig type of feel with an insistent snare rhythm and pan flute arpeggio in a 3/4 time signature. So before going into my DAW, I sketched out notes about the arrangement and tried to plan the overall structure as well as I could. Also, this song's arrangement is heavily inspired by Fireworks by Animal Collective. My first task was to move the song into 3/4 because the original is in 4/4. I had to change the rhythm of the melody in order to do this.
Hello, fellow dreamer, I'm floating here with you. What should we dream
2,
about
3,
tonight?
4. And here's what I changed the vocals into.
Hello, fellow dreamer, I'm floating here with you. What should
1,
we
2,
dream
3,
about
1, 2,
tonight?
3. So Ableton allows you to go in and cut up waveforms and stretch them out, and that's what I did here. So after I moved the vocal part into 3/4, it wasn't time to think about sound design just yet. I wanted to harmonize the chords separately.
Hello, fellow dreamer,
So here are the chords.
I'm floating here with you. What should we dream about tonight? I'll show you something new. Everything needs eyes absorbent, boys now. You keep attracted past the south, and that is where we'll go.
Sandy eyes, weedy sort your skies, it's freedom, come snag a taste. Keep in mind there is a point, these visions are not waste. What I mean you do not know.
Cool. So the chords kind of have a Mixolydian vibe. I decided since what I was looking for with the piece was an overall crescendo, that the tune would transpose up a perfect fourth right around here.
That is where we'll go.
Sandy eyes, weedy sort your skies, it's freedom, come.
And the vocals follow suit. That's the cool thing about working with vocal stems. You're not really limited in terms of the human vocal range. You can go as high or as low as you want. Alright, so now that I had my chords, the next step was to add my sexy snare. This is kind of the focal point of the piece that holds everything together. And it sounds like this. So this snare sound is a mixture of an 808 snare and a realistic snare sample. So with the snare, I decided to make use of a lot of stereo separation and some subtractive EQ, just because I knew the snare was going to be very present throughout the song, and I only wanted the essential harmonic information to be present, not president. So I'll take this time to note that this is the unmixed version of the song.
I tried to use this tutorial with the mixed version, but it was going to make my computer explode.
Further EQ was done during the mixing process. So right now we have our sexy snare, and I also imagined a rhythmic arpeggio being present, so that was what I did next. So all I did for that was take my little chordal information that I had in my piano roll, and I just moved it into here and created arpeggios with it. So it sounds like this. One thing I want to note about this flute, it relies on delay. This is what it sounds like without delay. what gives it its rhythmic drive is this rhythmic delay. Next, we need the bass. So all I did was refer to, once again, to the MIDI information I drew up at the top. Just copied and pasted in here. As you can see, I've got a number of bass instruments going. The primary bass sound hovers around the low mid-range, I suppose. And I also have a sub bass, which I'm going through headphones right now, so I can't hear it. I've also got a more high-end heavy sawtooth bass that happens during the chorus. And I've got this little guy. So that's an important note to take. When I was producing early on, I would usually have one bass sound going throughout the entire song, but with modern production, we can have as many bass sounds as we want. So we're still on the step where I am taking the chords that I wrote early on and multing them out into separate tracks. The final step with that was to make a pad sound. So I didn't really make this pad sound at all. I just used the tried and true warm pad sound that I just love to death, that you can hear on most general MIDI instruments. So one important note about using pads or sustained chords is to make sure that they are not too loud in the mix. You also want to be very liberal with subtractive EQ to make sure that they are merely padding the parts of the harmonic spectrum that you want filled and not getting in the way of the other instruments. The warm pad is a very, I would describe as not a very bright sound, so it's not very harmonically intrusive. And of course, I don't have any EQ here yet because this is the unmixed version of the song. But rest assured, in the final mix, I did a shit ton of EQ on the sound because it's just a pad. It's not... So now we've got our chords, our bass, our melody. We've also got a snare. So now it's time to add the kick. So I didn't use... I think the song only uses one kick sound. With more recent tracks, I try to use a variety of kick sounds, but this one's cool. So we got the kick, we got the snare, now we need the hat, which comes in during the key change to add momentum to the track. So I'd like to note here that I'm a big fan of polyrhythms and the idea of 4-on-3. That's when certain instruments play in 3/4 and others play in 4/4. The hi-hat is an example of that. So we've got the song which is in 3/4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And you've got the hi-hat playing a 4/4 rhythm. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So the idea of 4 against 3 is always something that's interested me. It's good. So now we have our kick, hat, and snare to go along with the chords, bass, and melody. This is what I consider to be the foundation of the song, but we've still got a long way to go in terms of adding more instruments to make it an interesting listening experience. I'm not going to go in great detail about each one, but I'll make a couple of interesting notes. So I added wind ambience to enhance the feel of the song that I was going for. So whenever you have a track, it's a good idea to add some kind of room ambience, and you can get as creative as you want with that. You can use wind sounds, or I think on Popscotch I used playground sounds. Just depending on the atmosphere you're going for, you can use any kind of ambience that you can think of course with liberal EQ. It can go a long way in terms of making your track feel like it's in a space, in a physical space. The next step was to add choir sounds, because who doesn't like that? So as many of you know, I like to put references in my songs, little Easter eggs, and I can't believe someone hasn't called me out on this one yet. Sound familiar? So for the chorus of the song, I wanted to spice up that pan flute arpeggio a bit, so I used a NES type of waveform. Once again, this sound heavily relies on delay. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about little sound designy things that people ask about a lot. People ask about how I have a lot of shoop sounds in my songs for percussion. All I do with that's just taking a waveform and reversing it. So in this case, I've just got a sound of an explosion that is reversed. So here's what it sounds like unreversed. And reversed. So I went over this in a previous tutorial a bit, but one of the really cool things that you can do in electronic music that you can't quite reliably recreate in an acoustic setting is having reverse percussion. This kind of anticipatory percussion of the next section, which I think is really cool. And all that is reverse waveforms. Nothing too crazy. Alright, so next, these little arpeggios I have, they go doo-doo-doo-doo. So all I do with that is I go to my MIDI keyboard and I pretend that I am a kid who's never seen a piano before, and I go across the white keys like this. And then depending on what key, my fucking pop filter's fucking up. Oh, you gotta throw me a bone with this one, pop filter. So this is something I do in quite a bit of tracks. Sometimes I use the diatonic scale, sometimes I use the pentatonic scale, which you could just go across the black keys for, and sometimes I use arpeggios, but for this one it seems like, yeah, it seems like that's just all the white keys, and I transposed it to be in the key of the song. The bird sounds at the starting of the song were made using NES-style oscillators. So these are just sounds that I created on the Plogue Chip Sounds VST that have a pitch envelope that mimics the sound of a bird chirping. More or less. Okay, so in this little part here, the chorus builds to a crescendo and you have this little jingle that plays that kind of reminded me of some kind of Windows jingle. Sounds better in the mixed version, so I'll just play it. So that's just 3 instruments. It's got this electric piano sound. And then a little NES waveform ditty. And with this example, I just want to bring across the point that you don't have to have an instrument going for the entire track. In fact, you can have an instrument that only goes for 2 measures in the case of these. So just a few more words about the structure of the track. As I said before, when I began this piece, I tried to know as much about the structure as I could, that's something I do for every piece. So in this middle section here, I kind of wanted the dynamics to break off, and there would be this sort of instrumental interlude. And then we have the outro of the song, where the dreamer wakes up and finds out it was all a dream. And I actually slipped in the intro to one of my other songs, Popscotch, here. That was like a last-minute decision. So, in review, I started with my vocal track, in which I took the 4/4 vocal and moved it to 3/4 by changing the rhythm. Then I added my chords, which I just put onto a piano roll. Then I had my snare. Then we had our flute line, which I derived from the chords. I then added my bass, which I already had written. Then then I added my pad. Now I have my kick and my hat. From here I had my foundation, and the rest came intuitively. So with this tutorial, I wanted to show my process step by step and also bring home the point that there are not many limits to what you can do with a remix. If you're working with vocals, you basically have one monophonic line and you're free to blend any kind of harmony or instrumentation with it. To bring that point home even further, this entire remix is based on an original song that I had in 2015 and never completed called The Sky Jig. Where's that fucking thing? Okay, so with playing you that unfinished tune from 2015, I just wanted to drive the point home even further that remixes are extremely malleable. I already had the arrangement and structure from this previous piece, Sky Jig, and just kind of used that as the impetus for Brazz's remix. So I killed two birds with one stone. I remixed Brazz's tune, and I also brought back my idea that I had not completed from the previous year. If you liked hearing that, my patrons get to hear cool exclusive shit that I have not released to the public, so you can check out my Patreon for more stuff like that. Alright, so that concludes my tutorial. Once again, if you are interested in studying composition with me, you can hit me up. If any of you have any more questions about the song, feel free to ask me in the comments section. Shoutouts to Maxo. His reinterpretive approach to remixing pushed me in this direction. And this is Nelward signing out.